Multifamily Mindset
podcast. Think bigger.
Welcome, aloha, welcome to the Multifamily Mindset podcast. It's Tyler Deveraux, and I'm here today with a special guest that I'm freaking pumped to introduce you to. And I'm not going to tell you his name yet, but I will tell you that he's an author, he's an investor. We're going to talk about his book, we're going to talk about his investments. He's a father and husband, and kind of, studying him and listening to him on other podcasts and some of his content, I would imagine that is his number one thing. He's also a former college athlete, played for Clemson, defensive end, if I remember, or no, middle linebacker.
That's it.
Middle linebacker. And then also a podcast host of the Real Estate Investing with Coach Carson. So we have the one and only Chad Carson. Welcome to the Multifamily Mindset podcast, my man.
Thank you, Tyler. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here, man. Thank you for taking the time. I know that you just got back from Spain, Granada, Spain. You lived there for how long with your family?
We were there for 12 months. So we came in the middle of the summer of 2022. Our kids went to school there. I have now a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. So they enrolled in local schools. And my wife's a Spanish teacher. So that's kind of our thing, is to go to Spanish-speaking countries and let them be immersed and learn the language. And it's just amazing experience. It was really, really fun. Lots of what I love about Spain. I mean, you start to generalize everything, but there's still appreciation for slowness, for siestas, taking a couple naps. I took more naps in 1 year than I've taken in my entire life. Played a lot of basketball and soccer. Just had a great time.
Dude, that's so awesome, man. And have you done this before, where you've moved to another country and spent some time immersed in another country?
Yeah, that's pretty much our why for our family. Like, why do we invest in real estate is being able to travel and do these kind of long, immersive experiences. Like, I love travel, period. But just my wife and I, when we first met, we talked about foreign languages. We talked about just these ideas of living somewhere else, studying abroad. And when I was in college, I played football. And it's like a full-time job. I didn't have as much time to study abroad as I would have liked. It was just always an itch for me. I just want to learn about other cultures, immerse myself, not just go on a vacation. I want to live there and learn the language. So that was a common thing that we shared. And once we got married, middle of the recession in 2009, we took our first mini retirement for 4 months, where we went to Spain and South America. I learned to speak Spanish in Peru. We hiked to Machu Picchu, went down to Patagonia and hiked there. So just really got the bug at that point. And then really my whole real estate story is about how do I work it backwards from that. I want to do more of this. I don't want to wait until I'm 70 years old to try to enjoy retirement. I want to do this my 20s, 30s, 40s, the rest of my life. And so that's been kind of a constant theme for us. Is we love traveling to Latin America, although Asia is really calling my name. I really want to visit Japan and go there, and Vietnam and some other places there. So it's the world's an amazing place. So that's kind of our compass, is trying to have that time and let our kids have that experience and be immersed and see that people do things in different ways in different parts of the world. And it's a humbling experience, and hopefully it expands your mind a little bit.
Bro, I love that so much. And you're so right. It's like getting into that's what I love about travel, is it just opens your mind to, there's more than one way to do something. And man, the amount of experiences and joy that you find together as a family, and then just once again, the connection that you find together as a family by doing that kind of stuff, you can't
100%.
create that. You can't recreate that elsewhere, man. So I respect that. I love that. And one thing that I want to drill in on is, you said you reverse engineered from there, right? Or work backward is what you said. You work backward. I call it reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Exactly. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that, man. Where were you? So you play some college ball, you get out of college, you know that this is the life that you wanted to live, or did you know that this is the life you wanted to live at this point? And then how did you go about working backwards from there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people might appreciate this. Like, when I got out of college, I sort of had this feeling, but I didn't know how to define it. And I think when people hear financial freedom, they that sort of resonates. Like, okay, I want more freedom. I always knew that I didn't want to go back in some box. Like, I played football in college. You went to the regiment of it's basically more than a job that I really wanted. So when I got a taste of entrepreneurship, of being able to control your own schedule, be able to be flexible, it was just, I got that little taste, and I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like, I don't have financial freedom. I got to hustle. I got to work hard. But I knew that was sort of that was my compass, was having that freedom. But it was kind of interesting that I went to a lot of classes, like everybody does as an early investor. And you have to try to find your lane. Like, what's your approach to real estate? And I just sort of, I went the like go big kind of mentality. Oh, let's wholesale and flip a bunch of houses. And I learned how to do that. I have a business partner, and we're like, all right, let's just buy and flip houses, and let's do this and try to make $1 million a year doing it that way. And as we started scaling that, nothing wrong with scaling, but it just, for us, in 2007, actually, we had 33 closings, and some of those were multiple properties. Some of them were multifamily, some single family. And we woke up at the end of the year, my business partner, I have to give him credit more than me. We're like, we're super busy. We are growing fast. We also saw the Great Recession kind of coming. We didn't see it ahead of time, but like you can see the storm clouds coming by the end of 2007. And we're like, why are we actually doing this? Like we're really busy and we're going somewhere, but like, where are we actually going? And we just we did this exercise, which I encourage everybody to try to do regularly, was we said, ignore real estate for a minute. Let's just write down the activities that we would do if we had all the money in the world. Like if we had money was no issue, like what would we do? And I did this, and it was really surprising to me because some of the things I wrote down needed money. Like I wanted to travel. You got to buy airplane tickets. You got to buy hotels or apartment or wherever you're going to live. So money is definitely a part of the equation. But I started writing things down like I want to play pickup basketball for 2 hours in the middle of the day. That's my thing. I like to play pickup basketball. I want to go hiking because I live in the upstate of South Carolina with beautiful mountains and trails and waterfalls. I want to be able to do that when it's nice weather. Kind of like people in Hawaii, the surf's up, right? You got the surf's up, you got to surf, right? And
you got to be out there, bro.
You got to be out there. So there's a lot of things I started writing down like that, like relationships and spending time with people. And a lot of them didn't need any money at all. Like it wasn't the money that was the obstacle. It was actually the time and the flexibility that were really getting in my way. And it was about that same time I read the book, The 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about many retirements. And he was talking about, let's not wait till the end of your life to try to enjoy these things that I had written on my list. And it was just sort of a wake-up call to me. And for me, it sort of put me out. It didn't happen right away, but it's in terms of real estate, we started reverse engineering it and saying, like, what's the least cumbersome business? What's the least number of properties we could have? What's the most efficient property system we could have in order to get us to this financial goal that we have? So it was kind of a reverse of like, instead of like having the most and 10Xing, it was, what's the least? Like, how simple can we get this thing? And so that was our mantra at that point. It took us a while. We had to make it through the Great Recession, but we tried to lead up the business. We still grew. Like growth is a natural part of what we had to do, but we tried to keep things lean. We never got an office. We never had, employees. We did have a bookkeeper who kind of grew into a property manager for us internally, but we really like deliberately, every time we made a decision of investment, we're like, how can we keep this leaner? How can we keep this smaller? Is this really necessary? And it became what the title of my book that I published this year called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. It kind of became that over time, this business model of saying, whether you have 2 properties, whether you have 100, it's this idea of saying, let's work it backwards from life. Let's make it as simple as possible. Let's look at these currencies of money, time, flexibility, like make those the most important things. And then this business is just a vehicle to get you as much of those, as full of a bank account as time and money and flexibility as you can get, so you can do all those things that you want to do in your life.
So powerful, brother. Thank you for sharing all that. I love how it's interesting, Matt, because our motto, I have a couple different companies. One of them is an education company. We do some coaching. I know you do some coaching as well. And our motto is think bigger. So our motto is think bigger, and yours is play smaller, kind of,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I love it though.
It's a little counterintuitive.
No, but the goal is the same. So this is what I love. And I agree, I'm going to reverse back a little bit to make sure that people didn't miss the actionable, which is to actually list out what you want to be doing and how you want to be spending your life. What does that look like? Because if you don't have that guide, if you don't have that lighthouse in the distance to really, once again, guide your direction, there's lots of ways to make money, Chad, tons. And there's lots of ways to get really distracted. There's lots of ways to get down a rabbit hole, and lots of ways to all of a sudden wake up and be like, holy shit, my kids are out of the house and I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it. That's what's so powerful with what you've done is you've actually defined those things, worked backwards. So the question to our listeners would be like, have you done that? Have you defined what, not just the money you want to make, once again, but the life you want to live? What does that look like? And then you reverse engineer it back. So with those kind of things, you said that, you find those aspects and then you continue to grow. Was it a certain dollar amount that you needed to get to there? Or how did you define what's too big, what's not big enough?
Yeah, it's just a dollar amount, really. When you break it down, and this is what's kind of beautiful about real estate, is I feel like it's a pretty simple math equation. Like I have friends in the FIRE community, like financial independence, retire early community, who do stocks and bonds. They get pretty complicated with all the 4% rule and how much can you withdraw and actually live off of. And it's not an easy math equation to figure that out. There's really smart financial planners who do that kind of stuff. In real estate, to me, it's just stacking cash flow. It's just stacking the amount of monthly income that you want. And I look at it pretty simply. Like when people are trying to figure out how many properties they need, and I'm talking about single family houses, duplexes, things like that, I just say, all right, let's just take like an average house. And I know average is different in different places, right? New York City, San Francisco average is different than South Carolina, Missouri or St. Louis, Missouri average. But let's just say you had a rental for $1,800 per month. And let's say all your operating expenses are about $800. So that's plus or minus, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management. We're just using round numbers here. And let's say that eventually you got that property paid off, which is another fun conversation to have, like whether you should or shouldn't do that. But let's say you did. If you had that property paid off, $1,000 per month after you pay your expenses would go into your bank account. So if you needed $10,000 per month, you would need 10 of those types of properties if you had them all paid off. And it's an interesting exercise, not saying that you have to do that or should pay off all your properties or you shouldn't. But I like to think about it because if your number was $10,000 per month, $120,000 per year, that would make your family happy. It would do what you need to accomplish. And I've talked to a lot of people, and that number resonates for a lot of people. Some people need 240, some people need 60, whatever. Like whatever the number is fine. But 10 houses like that, 10 properties like that could make all of that come true. And that's sort of mind blowing. It's like, wow, like stack up to, do simple math, 10 properties, get them paid off. And it's such a simple equation. And yet you would be light years ahead if you think about the average person trying to retire when they're 65, who only has a couple $100,000 in their 401k. And this is something that you could do in a 10 to 15 year period, easy. I mean, maybe you could do it faster if you're pretty aggressive, but wow, like 10 to 15 years, $10,000 per month with a super simple portfolio that when I look at my own portfolio, which is a little bigger than that, and I have a business partner, I spend less than 2 hours per week managing the managers and managing the portfolio of my real estate. 2 hours per week, $10,000 per month. And I think when people look at those numbers in that amount of time in their life, they're like, yeah, like that would work. Like I could do that. And so I try to put that number first. And of course, there's an infinite number of variations we could talk about and what types of properties, where the rents are, but keep it simple. Like that's the kind of aha moment for us that like, all right, we don't have to get that crazy here. We have to use a football metaphor, because I played football. Like you just need to learn the blocking and tackling. You need to execute some simple plays, and you can score touchdowns. You can win games. You can win championships just by being really, really simple.
That's the point though. So the point, I love the analogy, because the point is you actually have a target, right? And then you have a goal to get you to the target. You have a strategy to get you to the target. I talk about, in fact, just last night, I'm not joking, just last night, we're sitting in the hot tub with the kids and we're talking about gamifying your goals. We have a theme every single month that we do. And this month it's gamify your goals. And so we start breaking down, what does any game have? The game of football, well, it has an objective, something you're working towards, a way to win, right? A way to win. You have different levels, different quarters, right? You have a scoring process. You have rewards, both negative, incentives, positive, negative. There's a little bit of competition. There's a little bit of challenge. All those things come into a good game. So if you start to gamify your goals, really break it down like a game, dude, it's so powerful, and it gives you purpose and direction as long as you know where the destination is. And this is what I love about what you talk about, because you talk about designing your life, right? You talk about designing your ideal life, correct?
Exactly. That's where it all starts. Yeah, it's like that's the objective.
What I love too is I've heard you say that you have to, or that you should know your why before you begin to scale. And why should you do that? Because if not, it's very easy to get off track, right? Now, my question to you though is, how long did it take you to get to the point that you're talking about? where you could be primarily passive, the 2-hour work week? And does your why continue to change? Are you continually dialing that in? Or is that something that's just kind of always in the distance, that guiding, once again, lighthouse like I talked about?
Yeah, great questions. So for me, my personal journey, I had kind of this Great Recession hiccup in the middle, which was an interesting, 5 to 6 years to get out of that crater. But I started in 2003. I was 23 years old. I think it happened a little bit earlier than I actually realized it. But by the time I was 36, 37, so about 13 years later, some plus or minus, it was 2016 when my wife and I planned a 17-month trip to Ecuador. And we moved, our kids were 3 and 5 at that point. And at that point, I realized that, okay, I'm working a couple hours per week on the real estate. We have a team doing things for us. There's actually income coming in, and it's gotten even bigger since then. But that was the point when I was like, all right, yeah, we're definitely financially independent. We can do this. We have the time. We have the money. I think a little bit earlier, I think I was still just gun shy from having survived the Great Recession. I don't know if I have enough. There's these roller coasters. So maybe a little bit, but so again, that was my timeline. And some people do it faster, some people do it longer, but the goals do change. And so I think that's what's beautiful about having these kind of goals. To me, it's kind of like you're figuring out what you want to do when you grow up. You're just giving yourself space, because I think this is a problem. I think a lot of people, and I'm speaking, always pointing myself first, when you're 15 years old or you're 12 years old, people ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it's yes, it's a profession, but it's also a dream of who do you want to be when you're an adult? Who do you want to be? What do you want to change? What do you want to, it's this aspirational idea. And it's not about owning a bunch of properties and a bunch of boats, and all of that could be cool too. It's about this person you're going to be. And yet once you get into the adult world, you get kind of ground down by the system, this job and this W-2. And some of it's just, you have responsibilities. You're a parent, or you're a husband or wife or whatever, a partner. These things, these responsibilities are heavy. And so I think we kind of forget that creativity and that light that we had when we were a teenager or a young kid. What's cool is if you can just get to that space. That's why I think just get to that initial financial independence, that simple version of financial independence. The sky's the limit after that. If you want to go build multiple businesses and do this awesome thing over here, great. But now you have a foundation to fall back on. You never have to worry about sliding back down to that original point, because money's no longer an issue. Money's taken care of. I got that $10,000 a month coming in. And for me personally, it's been just like that. All right, what do I want to be when I grow up? And when I've done a lot of reflection, spending time with my family, doing this travel, that's been a huge kind of big part of it. That for me, it's kind of hard to quantify, but if I could be there when my kids get off the bus, if I could be there when we're having dinner and having a conversation, if I could just be present and not be missing that, I think the rest of it, nobody's perfect, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be able to coach them. I'm going to be able to teach them to listen, whatever I got to do. And so that's been a big chunk of my life that I really try to focus on. The other parts are, about other business / entrepreneurial ventures. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is this Coach Carson thing I do. And it's been like a hobby where I write a book and I do a podcast, and it literally has been a hobby for a long time. But as I've grown into that, I realized my calling, what I love to do is teach. It's just amazing. I love seeing other people get it. I love coaching people. Goes back to my sports. I used to think I was going to be a football coach, but this to me is even better. It's a way to, there's tons of people who need help and need application. And so that's become a thing for me. How do I quantify that and help as many people as I can and help them as well as I can? But then there's also been other things that don't make any money. And that's been really beautiful too. I have at my local town in Clemson, South Carolina, I was pushing my kids in a stroller when they were really young. My older kid was 4, she's 12 now. And I tried to push her in the stroller to the park. And I got really frustrated that all my little small town of 20,000 people is built 100% around cars. You can't walk, it's impossible to walk places because the sidewalks aren't connected. There's not good bike lanes. And that just frustrated me because I'm this is a way to get out and exercise. It's a way to connect the community. And I started, as an entrepreneur to do, I started asking questions, going to city meetings. And the way city volunteer meetings always happen there, I asked the planner, I was everybody talks about connectivity and how it's not connected and that's a problem. Who's working on this? She's no, nobody's really working on it. No, that's not happening. And I was all right, I just had a moment, was entrepreneurial moments. I'm going to work on this. And I kind of got some friends together and we started figuring things out. And so that was 2014. We formed a nonprofit called the Friends of the Green Crescent Trail. We learned that there was a professor on campus who had an idea of how to map this thing out and have 30 or 40 miles of trail connecting all the towns and local communities. And we just went out to try to start making this happen. And it's been an extremely long, frustrating process working with local governments. But this nonprofit is now, we've raised several $1 million. We've got the first 3.5 miles of trail going on the ground this year. We have this community of people who've kind of mobilized around this idea. And so I know that's not everybody's thing, but I know people have those kind of things where there's some problem that needs to be solved in a community. And if you're good enough to build wealth to make $10,000 a month, you're also good enough to go organize people and mobilize and solve problems in our world that need to be solved, and you're not going to make any money. And that's cool. Like I don't want to make, I've been donating money. I've been, giving tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to this thing. And that's great. Like I love it. And so I think all of us have that kind of stuff too, where we have these callings, these things that we should be doing. We have these causes, we have our families and relationships. And like, that's, at least for me, like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, bro, I ain't gonna lie. I'm listening to you and I'm like listening to your story. And there was a moment within there as you're telling your story where I was like, oh shit, I'm interviewing. Like I gotta be like, I'm just listening, bro, because I love the story. I love how passionate you are about the story. I love how grateful. You can tell that you're a grateful person just by how you tell the story and the things that you've done. And a couple things I want to put, what's interesting, by the way, is we live here in Maui, and our goal, my wife and I's goal, was very similar, where we wanted to move here to Maui for a year, spend unrestricted time with the kids before they got into school. So we moved here in 2019 when my kids were 3 and 5. So when you said you took your first trip too. And then we ended up like, dude, we were here for, I don't know, a month, maybe 2. And we're like, we're never leaving. we're never leaving. We freaking love Maui. And that has been a huge blessing for our family to be able to experience the Hawaiian culture and then be able to live out that dream. And one of the dreams is, dude, my wife was meant to live here. I was telling you, she was meant to live here. And so to be able to just be like, sure, yeah, let's stay, has been awesome. It's been amazing. But what I love with what you said is you said that, I just want to drill back down to it, because one of the first things you said is we get trained to ask essentially, what do you want to do? But it's who do you want to become, right? It's who do you want to become as an adult? Who do you want to be as an adult? And so your thing is that you wanted to be and want to be as somebody that, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but this is kind of what I pulled from your story. Somebody who travels, somebody who's there with your kids, somebody who's able to give back to the community, somebody who's able to coach and inspire others. Like, couple questions. Did you identify that up front, or has that continued to evolve? And then I want to ask you one more follow-up question with that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a messy process. For me personally, I'm a self-reflection kind of personal development junkie. Like I think just doing I've got a Tony Robbins tapes up here on the old tapes, like the power tapes from the 1980s. Like I used to listen to that stuff right when I got out of college. And I think like self-awareness and trying to reflect on yourself, and it's just a journey. And for me, it's like taking notes and doing those little exercises over time. It just, some things start bubbling to the top. And so for me, once I met my wife and, having a family, it's like, yeah, I don't want to like be on my deathbed and saying, what if I could have been a parent or could have done that. So just for me personally, that's my journey. Being a teacher, like really, I'm a learning junkie. I love learning. I love reading books. When I'm sitting in class, I'm like, man, I'm just digging this stuff, taking notes. So the reverse of that is being a teacher, like being a coach. And some of the people I admired most when I look back now were some of my coaches in high school, like, or my little league coaches, like the people who, they didn't make a bunch of money. They didn't have to be there, but man, did they care about the people they worked with. Like we need to give like prizes to every like high school and middle school teacher and coach for the the heart they bring to their job. I mean, what amazing role models they are. And so I wanted to, I think I didn't know that getting out of college. I just knew I wanted freedom, I wanted flexibility. But what a fun part of the journey to be able to explore that in yourself. And it's an internal journey where you say, hey, you know what? I think I do want to be a teacher. I do want to be a coach. And my wife is kind of going through this same thing. That's been kind of fun to see her. She's a Spanish teacher, but it was kind of a box to be in, to be a professor at a university, like all these committees and everybody kind of is always barking at each other. And it's not a friendly place to be. And so I was like, well, you just like to teach, right? Like, you don't need the money. Like, we're good. We got income coming in. So she's been volunteering, teaching English to refugees who are relocating to our area, teaching them how to go grocery shopping. You're like, man, she is like loving it. Like, that's great. She's using her gifts, her skills, but she's doing it on her time and her schedule. But when you don't need the money, you can kind of identify those kind of places that you're on purpose. They're meaningful. Forget the money. Just do it because you want to do it.
And that was the other part that I wanted to drill in on, which is why I love that you just circled back to that, because you talked about when you don't need the money, that now you reach that first level of, all right, bills are taken care of. It is amazing how much that opens up, how much clarity that opens up in your mind of what you can do. And so that first goal, I feel like way too many people, man, are so focused on helping other people before they've even taken the necessary steps to help yourself. And you should be helping other people the whole way along the journey. But how you do that is very different. You have to actually be dedicated and consistent to get you to that first basic threshold. And then when you do that, I mean, my Lord, man, there's so many, it's just opportunities that come from that. And I think I just want to drill home on this. Our podcast is the Multifamily Mindset podcast. And the reason that those so many opportunities open up from there is because now your mind is clear from those basic worries, and this is your greatest asset. And so when it is clear from those, it allows you to operate at a whole another level. And that is one of the most selfless things that you can ever do, because it puts you in a position to do the types of things that you've talked about. So when you talk about, when you talk about your portfolio now, what type of properties do you focus on? Is it primarily single family? Do you do some multifamily? What's your niche?
Yeah, we've grown into multifamily, actually. So when we started with single family, and I still love single family. I like having a diverse kind of portfolio. Single family is not going to be your cash cow. Like, I think you heard you say that too. Like, it's not going to make you a ton of money early on, but I do like the simplicity and the longevity of your tenants who stay there. And it's become like kind of like a blue chip stock. You know, you just own these solid single family houses. So we have single family houses. Some of those we used to live in, and we just kept those. But we, like, after the Great Recession, we started getting into multifamily a little bit, doing some value add projects. You know, we bought like a seven units, and we turned them around. It was a bankruptcy, got them fixed up. It took a while, learned a ton, made a ton of mistakes, but we learned that was a way to really, like, you know, quickly turn around some wealth and turn around some cash flow. And so we continued doing that. And sort of our niche, we're in a college town. And so there's more multifamily, but a lot of small multifamily and a lot of older multifamily. So we bought properties in the 70s, 80s, like vintage kind of properties. So not super old, but they kind of got into their life cycle. Like, my very first one that I bought was a fourplex that had Merry Christmas spray painted across the front. It had a chalk outline of a body in unit number 3. I don't know if it was a joke or somebody was just like messing with me there, but I started just turning around these multifamilies, but very particular location. So in a college town, my ideal tenant is someone who is like a grad student, international grad student, or an upperclassman who's sort of more mature, who's paying their own way, who are just looking for a good place to live. They're not looking for all the amenities. They're not looking for they had those in Clemson and college towns too, with the clubhouse and the lazy river and all that stuff. Like, I'm at a third of the rent of those people, but it's solid. It's on the bus line. It's walkable to campus. And so that's my niche. And we started just accumulating those. And we, 2016, right before we went to Ecuador, we got a 28 unit property that we bought for almost $1.1 million. Put a couple $100,000 of value added to it, and thought it was worth about $2 million, which it has been. But we started studying the zoning underneath a lot of our properties too, and started trying to find properties that had more density than the units we had on them. And so there's actually an unlock there that we've kind of played Monopoly. We bought several properties around that one, and if we put all those together, we have about 6 acres. And so it's a redevelopment property eventually. I don't know if we'll do it or let somebody else do it, but it's sort of unlocked this other kind of much bigger level of wealth than by putting multifamily properties together, focusing on zoning, focusing on locations. So I 100% love kind of growing into that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. Like, I love the I love how precise you are with the tenant that you're trying to attract. And that's like, because it makes your decision making so much easier. Like, does this product attract that tenant? And if so, beautiful, and you're well positioned within the market. And then I also love the bigger unlock there. It's super powerful. By the way, I also love the Carolinas, man. I have most of my wealth has been created from the Carolinas, both north and south. We had a bunch in Charlotte, bunch in Columbia. So I love those areas. I love where you live, man.
Yeah.
The opportunities it provides.
Yeah, Carolinas are great. We have a lot of people who get out to Florida, want the sun, and then they're like, they call them halfbacks. They come from New York and Pennsylvania, like, I'm going to go south. And then they go to Florida. It's like, it's too tropical. And they come back to South Carolina, North Carolina, and settle in with the seasons and the mountains. So yeah, we have a lot of good people moving here.
I've never heard it called that, bro, but I freaking love that. That is so true, dude. And it's a great combo of those. You're like, it's a good middle area. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Transportation route's really good there.
Yeah.
So, bro, tell me about your coaching program, because how did that start? When did you decide to do that? What's your goal with growing that? Tell me more about that program.
Yeah, I started doing it back in 2008, actually. So I was still a pretty young investor, but so I do it kind of local. I would go to a local club, a real estate club, and teach a class. And so I actually started back in 2008, 2009, my first mastermind group. And I just, people were asking me, because I was out buying properties and had some success with my own properties. Like, how are you doing that? Like, what are you doing? Like, what's your marketing system? So, you can do onesie twosies and kind of do that way, or you can say, all right, look, let's get together. I'll help you out. This is when I started getting the budding of realizing that I was a teacher and a coach. And so I started these little groups, usually one at a time, 7 to 10 people, and I'd start coaching them. And I just learned on the go, like they were graceful with me, but gave me grace because I was still learning how to be a teacher, but I would just share all my systems with them. Here's my operations manual. Here's how I screen tenants. Here's what I do. Here's how I find properties. Here's my funnel. So that kind of got me started on it. And honestly, I'm a pretty slow learner in this side of the business. I started just writing, and I kind of went old school. I physically sent these newsletter packages. I used to listen to this guy named Dan Kennedy back in the day, and he had this physical newsletter. So I started, every time I had a new customer, I would just add them to my newsletter list, and then they'd pay me a little bit of money and so I just started writing, and that's where writing kind of got into my form of teaching. And that eventually somebody's like, you're writing a physical newsletter. You can actually do this thing called a blog, put it on the internet. And so I started doing that, I think 2011 or 12. And so that it's kind of just been an organic side hobby, essentially. But where I've been coaching people off and on. But again, like lifestyle, when I've traveled, I've just turned that volume all the way down on that, where I'm like, no, let's just put that business aside for a little bit, because it's not going to work with what my time I'm doing. I did the same thing last year when I was in Spain, turned the volume down. I still published some podcasts, and I still did my YouTube channel and things like that, but it was just sort of a maintenance mode. I didn't teach any live classes. And then now that I'm back, I'm kind of ramping it back up again and excited about it. So the way it looks for me, I have a podcast, I have a YouTube channel, I have a newsletter. Those are kind of my top of the free stuff that people can get. I also teach some classes related to certain needs people have in the real estate space. And then I'm kind of playing around right now with a community and building a coaching community. And then I'll do some coaching on the back end and have some people helping me coach. But all of it is sort of on this theme of being a small and mighty investor. And so I'm attracting typically kind of your person who's doing it, they're working full time, they're doing this on the side. They want to have, they want some help, analyzing deals, putting the property portfolio together, building their systems, all with this vision, this idea of having more cash flow, more freedom, more time to do what matters, to do these things we're talking about. So a lot hasn't changed since 2009, but just evolving the way I'm delivering it. And it's been really lucky to have a pretty big following on YouTube, and that's grown really well. About 80,000 subscribers there. Have a podcast that's doing pretty well. So yeah, I feel fortunate to be kind of slowly growing that and trying to do it the right way. And then I've written 2 books now for Bigger Pockets, and Bigger Pockets has been very helpful for me and try to help grow my audience as well. They've published both of those for me, and so that's been fun to sort of connect with the Bigger Pockets audience as well.
Yeah, love it. I saw that one of your shout outs. What do you call it? One of the shout outs in your book.
Right. Yeah. The acknowledgements in the book.
Acknowledgements. Thank you. One of them was Brandon Turner, obviously lives out here in Maui.
Yeah. Brandon, he actually taught me into writing my first book. He's like, Chad, you need to write a book. He had just written the book on rental property investing, which just sets taken off as like a skyrocket. So yes, he helped me a lot.
Sick, man. And I'll tell you, your book has awesome reviews on Amazon. I looked it up, read through all the reviews, awesome reviews. So once again, any of you who are listening to this should absolutely go pick up the book. The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor.
That's it.
You just go search it, it'll pop up, and then look at the reviews. They're very, very good. Here's a question for you on your coaching side. I love how you said that they're patient with you, showed you grace as you're trying to figure out how to coach. Do you also believe that you, like, by coaching, it forces you to learn more and more in depth about your business as well?
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. That was one of the best parts about it, because there's some pressure when you go up and speak in front of people. You know this, of course. You've been speaking and teaching, and there's some pressure that you need to up your game. You need to really elevate your game. And one of my favorite, I really love looking at sports coaches as examples. And one of my favorites is John Wooden. He was a basketball coach at UCLA, Hall of Fame basketball coach. I had this little book on my shelf that a friend gave me. It's called Wooden, advice on and off the court for life. And it's these little nuggets of great things. But what I really take away from somebody like him, he was an amazing coach, but he led by example. There's some coaches who are dictator coaches and screaming at people. Like, I don't think that works anymore in 2023.
Amen.
It's not the style anymore. That might have worked back when Bear Bryant was Alabama coach and all that kind of stuff. But these days, I think for the better, that you have to earn your respect. Like, and that's what John Wooden did. He showed up every day. He elevated his game because they knew he had to walk the walk in order for people to like try to follow him as a leader. And I think that's ultimately what all of us are leaders, whether it's just in a small scale inside your family or on a bigger scale with more people. Like, we're all leaders, and leaders are servants. We're serving our people who are quote following us. No, it's the other way around. Like, we are serving them. We have a responsibility. We have the sacred trust with the people who are learning from us. And that's a challenge. Like, it's not easy. I've been a few times when I want to get out. I tell my wife this. It's like, why did I get into this sometimes? Like, I put myself out there. I'm being public about this. But then in those quiet times when you're self-reflective, for me, it's like, this is what your gifts were. Like, this is what you were here on earth to do, is to teach and to learn and to share with people. So yeah, I'm really glad those people early on were very flexible with me. And even now, like, nobody's perfect, but I appreciate that opportunity to learn while I teach, to help other people. And man, it's one of the most gratifying things when you see somebody else be able to accomplish something. As a parent, when you see your kids get to do something, man, it's 110% better than you're doing it yourself. Same with a student. When a student is successful, it's like 10 times more enjoyable than even when I did it myself.
That's what I underestimated. I overestimated how much I would enjoy my own personal success and milestones. I overestimated that. I underestimated how much I enjoy seeing and helping other people hit those milestones. It's just, it is, man. I always say it's one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done past parenthood. But I'll also tell you, I feel the same way so many times where I'll come to my office and it's like, what? Why? Like, I'm posting something out there of this years of experience and I'm just like trying to like help. And then I get these comments in the section of like people who haven't ever built or done anything, and they're just freaking chirping. And it's like,
haters.
What?
The hate is real, man. The hate is real on social media. If you're not ready to bring it, yeah, it's tough.
But man, I agree with you when you're backtracking too. With it makes you dial in your systems. I actually think it's a hack. It's been one of my biggest hacks of growth by teaching. Anytime I'm learning, and then it's like, okay, I got a basic understanding or at least a grasp, and I've applied it and I've done it. And it's like, okay, now share it. But then when you go to share it, you understand that in order to share it at an effective level, you have to know it at a way deeper level. But the more that I share, the more that I talk about it, the deeper and deeper my knowledge base goes. And then it also shows me what I'm lacking. See, in the beginning, I'll tell you that I would go to share or I'd get ask questions, and I realized I didn't have a true system or process for it. And it would make me shrink, like, oh shit. But really my game changer came when it was like, wait a minute. No, this is my chance to elevate. Right now I go and I create it, and now I pass it down, and now that's the greatness. Right? It's like, no, so thank you for showing me something that I didn't know or that I didn't have, so I could have, know, and share. You know?
I love that attitude. Yeah, what a good perspective. You're kind of turning it requires you humility from a leader to be that way though, because it's easy to get up on a pedestal and say, I got all the answers. I know this stuff. And like, to me, that's so heavy. Like that's who can live up to that. Right. But if you have this humility to say, hey, that's a good suggestion. That's a good question. And I'm going to go back to work on that because, I don't have that finished yet. And I think that's so refreshing to hear that perspective. It reminds me, I've been listening to Alex Hermosi on YouTube a lot lately. He's kind of a business coach and YouTuber. And he always says, like, when you share content, share what you've done or share how you've done it. But don't ever try to frame it as like, this is the way to do it. Like, this is how to do it. This is what I've done. This is how I do it. And man, what a difference that makes for me, at least as a creator, as somebody who's trying to share. It's like, you gotta build in some humility there. Otherwise you get too good, you get too big for your britches. You get too big for you start believing your own story that you're something else, when really, like, if you're lucky enough to be a leader and be a teacher, you've had some success obviously, but like if you're always trying to put yourself out there that you're so good or so perfect, it's heavy. It's too much, and it crashes. When you're heavy, it crashes sometimes.
It's such a great point though. And I think it's such a great takeaway for so many people, because so many people feel like in order for them to lead, in order for them to whatever it is, they have to be that. I disagree with that. I believe that like you said, I have been able to grow, and I feel like you are the same way because of the humility, because we realize we don't know it all. And that allows us to learn so much more. Bro, I also love what you said, which is you're a leader I actually believe it's how you tell if you're a leader. You're a leader by the impact you're making in people's lives. Are you actually making people's lives better? Because that's the true form of leadership. If you're not making people's lives better, well, then you're a taker. You're either making people's lives better or you're taking. So are you making or taking, right? It's the test of a leader. So I love that you mentioned that.
100%. Yeah. So that starts with on every level, right? So if you're selling something, you're a leader because you're giving. If you have a small team of people working under you, you're a leader. So leadership's it's a lifelong journey that we're all on. And that's why I love looking at sports leaders. That sports at its best is a metaphor for life, and life can be a metaphor for sports, back and forth. But sport, we can learn a lot from how people run sports. It's entertaining to watch football and basketball and those kind of things, but they also give us some really good examples on how to be and how to do our own thing
in all aspects. And John Wooden, that what made him special is he showed up every day, and also just the basics. Yeah. Like I love, like, one of his things is that first of the season, this is how you put on your socks. This is how you tie your shoes every season. That it's just the basics. One of the traps that I fell in was I felt like I had to create new things all the time and fancy things. And we're talking even as of like recently, this is a little learning lesson where it's like, no, that's actually more of a distraction than it is a benefit. It's the basics. People need the basics, the fundamentals. And how do you have them and help them master the fundamentals? So,
blisters. He used to tell the story that you get blisters if you don't put your socks on right. So that's such a good metaphor.
Yeah. Put them on, man. Perfectly. No folds, no creases, no nothing. Right. So what's next for you? What's this next project you're working for? What's that next why? What's the next portion of your life that you're currently designing?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like a teenager again, trying to figure this thing out. So to be continued, exactly what it is. But like one thing I'm looking at it, like the parent part of my life. Like I have an older daughter is 12 years old, and I think, oh my gosh, like 6 years from now she's gonna be going to college. So like, man, 6 years is no time. Like, so just trying to soak that up. My wife and I are doing a lot of camping and like backpacking with them now if we can, and so just kind of continuing that as kids get older, that kind of the way you are as a parent, what they need you and how they want you to get out of their life a little bit as a teenager. Like, oh, Dad, I'm good. Like, leave me alone a little bit. So that's evolving, of course. But also I think just the leadership, I'm trying to figure out different ways. I'm having a lot of fun with this online platform with Coach Carson. I'm really digging into that. And how can I be a better teacher, better storyteller, really learning a lot about that. How can I look at examples, what you're doing, what other people are doing out there, Brandon Turner. Like I'm just a student of the online business game. And I really love this contrast of having like physical sticks and bricks, real estate, and then having online assets, which are like 100% like, just there's no sticks and bricks. It's just this ideas in the ether, and the internet, and how both of those have value. And so I'm having a lot of fun with that, and just figuring out ways that I can spread the message more, share my work more, be a better teacher. So I think I'm kind of going back to school a little bit in that respect of just trying to get better at that, and also turn that into a business like that. The Coach Carson business for me, it's had some years that didn't make any money. I'm trying to turn the profitability up on that. And for me, it's a couple of reasons. One, I can pay people to help me do what I do, and I don't have to, I don't edit my own videos. I don't, I don't have to, my email's like a disaster area sometimes. So like, all right, I need to have somebody help me do this. So apply some of the things I did in real estate systems wise and say, all right, I got to like fix up my own like Coach Carson house as well. And so having money is how you do that. You can pay people, and it also is an engine for some of the other stuff I want to do, like the trails, the nonprofits. My wife and I started a fund basically that we can contribute from. And so, yeah, when you have a talent to make money, like why not keep doing that? And why not keep growing so that you can use that money in places that are helpful?
Yeah, to serve. I'll tell you one thing that if I'm selfishly asking you to talk more about,
sure, go for it.
What I would, because I respect you a ton, bro, for your background, for being a collegiate athlete, by building a real estate portfolio, by all these, your coaching, for all these things that you've done professionally. But I respect you way more as a dad and a husband. And I want you to hear that and take that, because I really do, bro. I see your content. I see what you put out. I can tell even just by talking to you, like I'm a good read of energy, very, very good read of energy. And I know that you're a great dad and a great husband. Not a perfect dad, not a perfect husband. That doesn't exist, like you mentioned. but it matters to you. And I think that way too many in today's world, you got way too many people out there flexing anything and everything except for the most important thing, which is that.
Well, thank you.
I believe, thank you, bro. I think that you should talk more about that, because I believe that that's one of the things that is uniquely you, that helps you like really connect to you, because that's a huge driver for me, so that's uniquely you.
Great advice. Yeah. I think sharing your personal story online is one of the, it's counterintuitive, because you put yourself out there, but at the same time, that's what draws people to you when you're authentic. So 100% appreciate the feedback on that. And also just the compliments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you one more question as a wrap up, because your YouTube channel is 70 something thousand subscribers. That's not small. That's awesome. How did you start it, and what was your strategy with it? If you were to start from the very beginning, because I believe it's something like that, some sort of a platform like that. I believe everyone should start if you're going to try to build anything.
Yeah. And
so my question, if you were to start in the very beginning, again, brand new, and maybe you already approached it this way, but how did you approach it? How would you approach it differently to continue to grow and scale the way that you have there?
Kind of like other things, it was sort of an accident that I started it, but there's a common theme here in my story, I think, is that I was just teaching online, And what I started doing was back in 2013, 14, I think it might have been sooner, actually. I had a couple interesting videos that were, if you go way back in the beginning of my YouTube, one of the early videos was with Deveraux, the head football coach at Clemson, actually. So I recruited him his second year. He wouldn't do this now. He's way beyond this, but I was playing basketball with him, pick up basketball in the middle of the day. And I was like, hey, Deveraux, like, I'm doing this local real estate seminar. You're like, I'd love you to be the headliner for me. And he was in real estate before he got into coaching, believe it or not. Yeah, he lost his job at Alabama and was like in between jobs, and he got into commercial real estate sales. He was out there in Texas selling stuff. So Dabo's a real estate guy, and I recruited him.
I know that.
Yeah, this is little known story. And so he spoke for me as the headliner. So I have a couple of like clips from Deveraux telling some cool stories on my real estate YouTube channel. So those are some early ones. But then the other thing I did, and this is my tip for people who are like trying to get started in YouTube, was I was very low production. I had like a phone, or I might have had this like little old camera, the digital camera, and I was just me with a piece of paper drawing and teaching stuff that I knew how to do. So we all have talents. We all have things that we're good at. And so I just started drawing out, for example, some of my early videos were about creative financing. So here's how you buy a property with a lease option. here's how you buy a property with seller financing. And I would draw these little stick figures. And this is what I used to do with my private lenders. And I would teach people like, it'd make them feel more comfortable about loaning money to me. And so I was kind of experienced doing that. I like drawing and writing. So the point is like, you just got to put some stuff out there and that's authentic, and you don't need to be worried about production. Use your iPhone, use your phone. Don't worry about all that stuff, but you do have to put it out there. And I'm still like blown away that some of those videos, those bad, I can't even watch them now. They're so slow, and I'm just like talking too slowly. And it took me like 3 minutes to get to the point. I'm like, oh, this is horrible, YouTube. Like, this is bad. And the thing's got 30,000 views. Like this because it was in 2013 or something. It's way a long time ago. So if I had to start it over again, and I'm thinking back when I was just a multifamily investor locally, I would have started doing like a podcast locally. Like I think like I'm in a national podcast. You are as well now. We have kind of a different audience, but I think I would have interviewed the local city council people. I think I would have talked to the local codes person. I would have this little micro audience, but I would have used social media as a way to make me the center of all of these conversations in this network. And, the metric might not have been having like thousands and thousands of views. I might have hundreds of views, but I had these local people watching me. And who would they think of when they thought about real estate investing, and who's the person to sell your real estate to? They would have thought about me. And all I would have had to have is a podcast mic that was $70 and, a podcast account that's pretty cheap, and a YouTube channel, which is free. So social media is so powerful, like so powerful. And if I'm kind of dating myself that there was not, like, Facebook wasn't even a thing when I first started investing in real estate, but I don't think I realized early enough on how much leverage there is in information and audiences. It's really blown me away what kind of reach you can have.
Bro, that's great, man. I love that idea too. It is so true. Like, you have to define who your audience is, big or like that niche audience. And like you said, the codes person, that's such a great idea. I love that. Great advice, bro. Great advice. And also, how powerful is it for you to be able to look back, see the video, those old videos, even though they're like, and be like, man, look at, like, you can literally see the growth, like, see it.
Yeah.
That's so powerful to your identity.
Yeah. It is. This is fun. Yeah. The YouTube game, and YouTube in particular, like, I encourage people to publish on there because it's a discoverable engine. So you want discoverability is something where you put it, it's like an asset. It's like a real estate asset. You have this video, which becomes an asset for you. That could be out there forever. Like, I've had videos that caught on. I don't know why they caught on. I don't know why people found them. This algorithm helps you find them. And so that discoverability is really big, but it's also a search engine, and people search for things on there as well. How do you do this? How do I sell my house in Maui? How do I sell my property or my multifamily property in South Carolina? Like, it's a marketing funnel as well. And so, yeah, YouTube is amazing. And it's just getting started. Like, I look at Mr. Beast. I look at some of the big influencers, and Graham Stephan in the real estate space. I mean, Brandon Turner. Like, it's just getting going, and the potential on YouTube.
Agreed. And I think that what you just said is very critical too. So first off, it's searchable. So what are the terms that your people, whoever you are out there, would be looking for, and then make videos around that, right? Things that you can actually speak to, and then recognize and understand that it is a growth process. Like, it's not just going to take up overnight. Mr. B's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
That's why he is who he is, but he's developed a skill. You could take away everything tomorrow, he could recreate it because he's developed a skill through repetition, right? The other thing is, it is credibility. Like, so many people will see us, you and I, and a lot of we recognize views, we recognize subscribers. Other people just recognize that you have a YouTube channel, that you actually put out. They don't even look at the views. It's like, okay, there's credibility there because you're actually, dude, you have a YouTube channel. You must know something. It's powerful.
100%.
Chad, I want to end with, I'm going to ask you one more question too. Actually, before I dive into this, how can people connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. So Coach Carson, the brand, if you search for it on Google, if you search for it on YouTube, if you search for it on any podcast platform, search Coach Carson. I'm on there. And I think the best, every Monday I publish a podcast episode, and I do it on YouTube. I do it on all the podcast platforms. So that's really if if you're wanting to listen, if you like watching videos, that's the best place to connect with me. You can also go to coachcarson.com, my website, and I have an email newsletter as well. So those are my like regular ways to connect with me, and those are free, of course. So check me out there. Be happy to connect with everybody who's listening.
You're not mailing the old newsletter anymore?
Not anymore. I mean, maybe I'll get back into that. The old things come around sometimes. Like I've heard,
Right, sets you afar.
Yeah, who knows?
Okay, we'll put all those links. If you'll send me all those links, we'll put those all in the description as well. And bro, at the end of each podcast, we like to end with a Hawaiian value. Big on the Hawaiian culture. And as I studied you and got to know more about you, I was like, I didn't even have to. I knew which one I wanted to choose. There's two that I wanted to choose from, but this one for sure. One is the Imiola, and that means to essentially seek the best life that you can create. But it just seemed too easy, So I chose a different one, which is Ike Loa. And Ike Loa, so Ike means to see, to view, to perceive, even to experience. And then Loa is plentiful, abundance, very much. So you combine the two words, and Ike Loa means it means see many things. And the reason I love that and I chose that for you is because that's what you and your family are all. That's how you've designed your life, is to see and experience many things. And it's also it talks about being childlike, not childish, but childlike, and always learning, always experiencing, always just savoring the moment. And bro, I feel like that's who you are to your core. You embody Ike Loa, and once again, that's why people gravitate to you, bro.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Hawaii is such a beautiful place when I visited, and the culture. So that's a gift. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I think on my gravestone, if I could put something on there, like this dead guy was curious when he was alive. Like I'm curious. I love learning. I love studying stuff. And again, wherever you are, if you're teaching, if you're writing a book, like being a beginner, having that beginner's mind, which sounds like that's got a lot to do with that word, is 100% an aspiration for me as well. So thank you.
Be curious. I love that. That's a great way to end, man. Thank you so much, Chad, for taking the time to be on the podcast. Everybody out there, go follow Chad, go buy his book, go learn from this dude. He's a wealth of knowledge, and then share this episode so more people can learn and know about him as well. Chad, thank you so much, bro. Appreciate you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Tyler. Really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. We'll see you.